Well, good morning, Big Creek Church. Good morning. For those who like to follow along, we will be in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16. You probably see the title of the sermon up here, What Can We Learn from a Dishonest Man? And many of you are looking at that title saying, Tim, we learn from you every week. But Luke chapter 16 is the beginning of it is an interesting parable from Jesus Christ. It's unlike most of his parables. Like most of his parables, it teaches us valuable lessons for how we should view God and how we should live our lives in light of the gospel and what he has done for us. But so many of his parables illustrate somebody that represents God or a God-like character or even himself. And another character may represent somebody who's not obedient to God and it's clear they're doing wrong and they receive punishment for it. Or somebody in the parable does something right and is loyal to God and is rewarded for as such. But this parable is about a dishonest man, a dishonest steward in this case, who lives a selfish life, does selfish things at the expense of others, and yet Jesus is using this dishonest man as an example for how we as Christians should live our lives. So we're going to go ahead and just read the parable in its entirety, and then we'll read through it and break it down verse by verse. But we're going to start with verses 1 through 8, and it reads as follows. It says, verse 1, And he said, Jesus, also to his disciples, There was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, How is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer my steward. Then the steward said within himself, What shall I do? My Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig, and I am too ashamed to beg. I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of my stewardship, that they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him. And he said unto the first, How much owest thou unto my Lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, Take thy bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, And how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, Take thy bill, and write 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And that's where Jesus ends the parable, and we're going to cover the next several verses as well, where Jesus offers a little bit more explanation to this. But this is a strange parable. Here we see a man who does horrible things, disrespectful to the man who gave him a job, and he's commended for the bad things he has done. So what's going on here? Now it's interesting, the parables that preceded this are some of the heavy hitters. Jesus talks about the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the prodigal son, which is, again, a son that is found. All these illustrate that God will always find and claim what is his. Nothing is lost to God. And if we are his children, he will find us, he will save us, and we don't need to worry about that. And then immediately Jesus switches to this parable here, which it tells us at the very beginning. It says, He said unto his disciples. So this parable, he's speaking specifically to his disciples, not a general audience. And guess what? If you are a follower of Christ today, you too are his disciples. Disciples are learning from God, and God's directing on how they should live their lives. So Jesus is telling that to his disciples personally, but it's a lesson for us as Christians. And he's saying we can learn something from this story. So again, it starts out with a certain rich man, a wealthy man, had a steward. Another way to phrase this in a better context is, this is a rich man who employed another man to take care of his finances. This man is put in stewardship of his employer's finances. He has an important role. His employer has trusted him with his valuables. So this man has mismanaged those things. He has done wrong by his employer. He's probably pocketed some of the money for himself. It doesn't say exactly what it's done, but it tells us that he's mismanaged his employer's money. And now in verse 2 it says, he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for you may no longer be my steward. So the employer gets wind that this man, his employee, has not been using his money wisely, wasting it, and maybe even pocketing himself, maybe even embezzling it. So he tells the man, his employee, he says, I hear that you've been wasting my money. I want you to come meet with me, and I'm going to take an account of what you've done with what I've given you. Now, clearly, as Christians, we can think of this in a biblical context, a heavenly context. God is our master, and God has put us in stewardship of this life he's given us and all the blessings he's given us. So imagine if God called on you today to say, hey, I want to take account of you today, how you have managed what I have given you. What would you think? Would you be ready to give an account and say, Lord, I've done good things with what you have given me. I've shared the blessings you've given me with others. I've loved my family. I love my community. Or would you be like this man and say, Lord, I've squandered what you have given me. I've wasted what you have given me. And maybe you're afraid to take account of what the Lord has given you. But that's the scenario here. This employer said to his steward, he says, I'm going to take an account of what you have done. And we read in the next verse that the steward says within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me my stewardship. He knows that once his master, his employer, takes an account of what he's done and how he's wasted his wealth and his goods, he's about to lose his job. He's known he's done wrong. He's known he's done bad. And he even says in that same verse, verse 3, I can't dig. In other words, I have no other skills. I don't want to work hard. I don't want to be out in the hot sun shoveling. I don't want to do hard labor. I can't do that. And he says he's too ashamed to beg. So this man, we see he's not exactly a good man. He's not willing to work hard, and he's not willing to humble himself and beg and ask for help. So this man is certainly the kind of character that we read and say, wow, he has no integrity. He's not only a dishonest man, but he's not a hard worker, and he has no desire to do what is right. But in verse 4, we see something interesting. He sees what's happening. He sees that his employer is going to take account, and he knows he's going to lose his job. So in verse 4, he says, I am resolved what to do, that when I'm put out of my stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So this man looks at his life and realizes he's in trouble. He sees his future doesn't look good. And he begins to take action and devise a plan of what he needs to do to ensure his future. He sees things don't look good for him in the future, and he says, what do I need to do? And he devises a plan. Now let me ask you, church, we all know that we're sinners. We all know we make mistakes. But what do we do in light of that? What is our plan for the future? How do we deal with the reality of our lives? Now, as a good Christian, we should say, wow, what does God want from me? And when we seek God, we see that he forgives us of our sin. He forgives us of our transgression. He loves us and wants better for us. And we should repent and turn towards him and try to live as good and holy as a life as we can. But this man doesn't think like that. In fact, this is what he does. Before he gives account to his employer of what's happened, it says in verse 5, he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him, because he managed his employer's assets. He calls his debtors to him, and he says to the first, how much owest thou unto my Lord? Verse 6, the first guy asked this, he owes him 100 measures of oil. Now, if you read any commentary or history on this, 100 measures of oil is quite a sum of money. And his job is to collect debts for his employer. And instead of collecting the amount that is owed, he tells them to sit down quickly and write a check for half the amount. And what he's doing here is he's earning favor with the people he's forgiving half this debt to, so that they will like him. He does this with another man. Verse 7, he says to another, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said, just pay 80 and the rest will be forgiven. So what he's doing again is he's earning favor with these other people, so that when his employer fires him, they will work with him. They might help him out. And they might even employ him because he scratched their backs and now they got to scratch his. This man is doubling down on his sin and transgression against his master, wasting and squandering his goods, doing it even further so that in the future other people will accept him and he might have more opportunities with them. And that's where verse 8 gets really weird. Usually when we read things in the biblical narrative, we read parables or we read history of stories of things that have happened. Generally, when people do bad things happen to them. And when we do bad to somebody, that somebody is angry at us and comes against us. But in this case, verse 8, it says, and the Lord, talking about his master, his employer, commended the unjust steward. So he does all these awful things to his employer, squanders his money even further, and the man respects what he has done. He commends him for the actions he has taken. And he says, because he has done wisely. Because he has done wisely. Now make no mistake, this man is not happy what has happened to him. But this man, being a wealthy man, a prominent man, and a worldly man himself, respected that this man leveraged what he had to earn more for himself in the future, to protect himself and ensure his future prosperity. This man of the world respected what this other man of the world had done. And quite possibly because if he was in the same situation, he may have even done the same things or like to think he was smart enough to do this. And that's when Jesus gives us a hint or really explains why he is using this as an example for us as Christians to give us some guidance on how we can live our life using the example of a dishonest, sinful, worldly man. He says the following. This is the second part of verse 8. He says, children of this world, for the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. Now, in this context, I like to think all of us here today are the children of light. We are the sons and daughters of the God Almighty. We are blessed. We are his children. We are his people. And those in this world that do not have God, that are not living for God and respecting God and honoring God and being obedient to God, they are worldly people. They are children of this world. And in many ways, Jesus again is talking to his disciples. Again, we are his disciples. He's preparing us and working on us to live out our lives in a godly, good, and just manner. And he points out that the children of this world, they work harder and wiser for the things they believe in than many Christians. In many ways, he's telling them they don't work as hard as worldly people. And think about it. All of us get up every morning and work towards something. Many of us have jobs. Many of us will wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow's Labor Day, so maybe Tuesday. You'll wake up and go to work. And you're working for a reason. You're working to earn money. You're working to provide for your families. You're working for hopefully noble things. And we work hard to provide for ourselves and our families. So many people in this world work hard for some reason. What are you working hard for? Are you working hard for the Lord? Are you working hard to achieve goals that you deem valuable? People in this world who don't love God, who aren't obedient to God, so many of them work for themselves, to gain wealth, to gain prosperity, to secure their futures like this man has done. He's working to secure his future, his comfort, his resources. So many people in this world work hard to gain power, to gain influence, to gain money. So many people in this world fight hard for things we know to be wrong. But it's what they love in their hearts. It's what they deem is good for them, and they work hard for that. We see people in this world that work hard, and they will lobby the government. They will perhaps become politicians so that they can get their way. We see examples today, we see protests and parades for things like LGBTQ issues. We see climate change issues. We see these people fighting hard for these things of the world that they believe in. I mean, turn on the news and you'll see some protest for some cause other than God on the news. But how often do you turn on the news and see Christians protesting or some movement swelling up from grassroots movement of how hard Christians are working for the gospel's sake? And that's what Jesus is saying. Look how many people in this world work hard for what they believe in, even if it's wrong, even if it's going to end with death and destruction. But look how hard they work, and contrast that with God's people. So many of us don't work as hard as we can or should. And Jesus is making that comparison and saying, we can learn from the unjust steward. He did bad things, but he did them for himself to secure what he thought was best for him. Are we doing the same? Are we working as hard and diligently as the people of this world? And he goes on to explain even further. Verse 9, he says, I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. So Jesus is telling us to leverage the things of this world. You've all heard that term mammon, and most people associate mammon with money. And it can be, and in this context it likely is. But mammon is a Arabic word that means that which people put their trust in. Now, we all put our trust in something. Ideally, we put it in God. But the mammon of unrighteousness is anything that is not God. Anytime people put their faith in money or their own works or their own abilities, or maybe they put their trust in things of this world, whatever it is, if you put your trust in anything other than God, it's eventually going to fail. So many Christians automatically think, well, then I shouldn't use any of those things. But that's not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying, leverage the things of this world for the benefit of the gospel of the kingdom. You know, an example is Paul writes to Timothy in the book of Timothy. He says, love of money is the root of all evil. That's true. If you put your faith and trust in money, that's the root of all evil. Putting your faith and trust in anything other than God. But we as Christians don't have to love money. We can use money. We just took up a collection, an offering. We do that every Sunday. I love offering, and somebody in this church is gracious to give freely. And we know that when you donate to the church, you're not buying your place in the kingdom of heaven. We know Christ has paid that price in full for your salvation. There is no requirement to give at all. But I love how this church knows that God has blessed some of us with wealth and prosperity. Take that money, use the things of this world to bless other people. And so often we take that money of this world. And that's what Jesus is saying here. Leverage the things of this world, leverage even money for the benefit of the kingdom of God. And he goes on to say in verse 10, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. And God has blessed everybody here with some type of a blessing, whether it's wealth, a skill, a talent, something you've inherited in life. All of us have been blessed with something. We've been given something even in a worldly sense. Now, we've been faithful with what God has given us. Have we used what God has given us for the betterment of His kingdom, for His glory, for His honor, to share His love, grace, and mercy with others? Are we being good stewards of the things He has given us? And if we haven't been good stewards of the little things God has given us, why would He give us more? And that's what He's saying here. All of us have been blessed with something, even if it's something small. But be faithful even with that smallest thing the Lord has blessed you with. And He goes on to say, if therefore you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit unto your trust the true riches, eternal godly things? And take account of your life, even the smallest blessings in life. Even if you don't have the ability to get out of bed in the morning, guess what? You have the ability to pray to God. You have the ability to thank Him for giving you breath in your lungs that day. No matter with what little you have in this life, God has blessed you with something. Be faithful with whatever God has given you. And just like the people of this world, worldly people, They would leverage all that they have for their own satisfaction, for their own what they believe in. They will leverage those things, just as the unjust steward took his circumstances and leveraged it to secure his future. Are we taking the things God has given us and following the example of him, being prudent with what God has given us, and making sure we're doing what is good by God, what is good for us, and what is good for our future and the future of others we love? Are we leveraging those things God has blessed us with? And again, it's sad that so many of us get complacent in life. And when we really look at things, we see how hard people of this world work for the things that they love and enjoy, even if they aren't eternal things, and compare that to how we work. I mean, I think of people like Steve Jobs. Look at Steve Jobs. He built an empire at the company known as Apple. I mean, I bet half the church here is sitting with one of his products in their pocket. He revolutionized the world with computers and other devices, and of course phones. Built a company that would be in the top 20 countries in GDP. This man worked hard and diligently for those things, to build a name for himself, to build value for himself. He worked hard for those things. How many Christians work that hard for Christ? Now, unfortunately, Steve Jobs lived his life. I don't know if he had a repentant heart. I truly don't know. I hope he did. But if he didn't turn towards God before the end of his life, well, then he lived for temporal things, and that's all he has. Those things fade away. Are we working as hard as the people of this world for the sake of the gospel? Are we taking what God has given us, even things like money and worldly things, and leverage them like the unjust, dishonest steward? He goes on to say, and if you have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? You know, it's easy to think we own ourselves. I think a lot of us think we own ourselves. But somebody paid a very expensive price for your soul. We owed a sin debt which we could not pay. And if that sin debt was not paid, our life would end in death, destruction, and hell. But somebody purchased us. Somebody, as we know, is Jesus Christ. He paid that debt in full. And he's given us this life. He's given it to us. Are we treating this life, this gift we've been given from God, with respect? Are we living a life that honors the one that died so that we could have this life? Are we being faithful with what God has given us? This life we live now is just an example or an opportunity to demonstrate to God how we have received the gifts he's given us. We love him and show we love him by the works and deeds we do. Not so that we can be saved, we've already been saved, but just so that we show God honor and respect that he deserves. Are we being faithful with the things God has given us? Now here's what he ends it with, and this is what I'm going to end it with before we close here in song. No servant can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You can't serve two masters. So many of us have that human tendency. We like to have one foot in the things of this world and one foot in the kingdom of heaven. I think we're all honest. We either there now in our lives or we have been there in our lives. It's hard. It's hard. We need to trust in the Lord, trust and secure us in eternity. But then we also think, well, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to secure my future. I got to work hard. I got to work that second job. I got to put deposits in my bank account so that I can retire, so that my children can be prosperous. I got to do X, Y, and Z. We live a worry as if we're living in the world and we have to do these things. But if we have faith and trust in our master, our heavenly master, we shouldn't have faith in those things. That doesn't mean God won't call on you to work hard in this world. It doesn't mean God won't call you to do these things, but who are we serving? Are we our own masters? Are we dictating what we should and should not do? Or are we serving God and trusting Him? Because you can't serve two masters. You'll love the one and hate the other. And so many people, we think of other people worshiping other gods, serving other gods, trusting in other things of this world, but at the end of the day, a lot of people live their lives as if they are God, as if what they feel is most important, what they feel they need, they pursue those things. Most people become their own master. If you become your own master, you're not loving God. You all know I quote it all the time. It's actually flip your Bibles back one page, chapter 14. I'll end it with this. Verse 25. And there was the great multitudes with him, with Jesus. And he turned and said to them, If any man come to me and hate not his father, mother, wife, children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Now, Jesus is not saying you hate your mother or father or your siblings. He's putting this in a context of what is first in your life, what is most important, what is your master, who is your master. Are you living for yourself? Are you living for somebody else in this world? Are you living for some system or belief in this world? Or are you willing to deny all those things, even your own life, to put God first? And it should be made easier when you know that you don't need to worry about your life. Christ is taking care of your life. No matter what happens in this world, some of the very men he was speaking to there, his core disciples, would go on to live a life where it ended pretty bad, where they would become martyrs, where they would be killed for professing Jesus Christ. But guess what? Because they put their faith and trust in Jesus, because they served the one true eternal master God, their lives preserved forever in the kingdom of heaven. So we need to trust in God. We need to let him be our master. And we need to work even harder than the people of this world. We need to be even more wise and prudent than the children of this world. Because again, Jesus said the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. So the example or the whole point of this parable is look at how people live for the things they believe in this world. Are you working as hard as them or even harder? If not, what can you do to be a better servant of Christ? What can you do to show him you appreciate this life he's given you and respect what he has given you stewardship over in this world? Are you ready to be faithful in the things you have had now in this life from God so that he gives you more abundantly in eternal life? So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Donna to just play us some music here, and I'll ask you all to stand. And certainly while she's playing this song, if there's anything on your heart that you'd like to pray about, come up to this altar. We'd love to pray with you. And again, we love you all and appreciate you. Thanks so much.